Classics. The word makes some people groan, makes other people swoon. But here's the thing, not all classics are created equal. We should know this by now. Some are painfully overrated, some are underhyped, and some are downright terrifying. Others, they'll punch you through the gut, grab your intestines, and never let go. Let's dive into the ones that I believe deserve a spot on your shelf. In fact, I believe they deserve a spot on everyone's shelf. I was not as prepared for filming as I thought I was. I have to collect some books really quick. Don't mind the pajamas.
Good for my emotional health.
Basically, I just think you should read Jane Austen. There is quite a bit to discuss here, so we're just going to speed run. I'm going to give you the bullet points of each book and whether or not I think you should read it, which is yes, except for one. So let's start with Pride and Prejudice, which is not only iconic enemies to lovers, it is so witty and hilarious and so beautiful and life-changing, and I may or may not have read it 12 times. And I will read it some more before my life is over. This is my favorite Jane Austen book by far, so you should definitely read that one. Matchmaking Gone Wrong, Friends to Lovers, slow burn, literally a lifetime of slow burn. Also read that one. Persuasion, underhyped. Oh, it's beautiful. It's mature. It's a little more slow moving, but that's because it's emotional repression tied up in regret and second chances. Love Letter Confession, 10 out of 10. Northanger Abbey, not mature, a little spastic, a little crazy. It's kind of like gothic parody meets main character energy, and it's definitely worth a read. Mansfield Park is probably Austen's black sheep for a couple of reasons. It is a bit slower, not in the persuasion kind of way, just in the overall general way. Honestly, it's a little bit underrated. Slow but rich. Cousins. But this is basically what happens whenever your main character is very introverted and you live in Old England. Sense and Sensibility. Crying. So much crying. So much. And there's a lot of and I would tell you that there is crying. Dual heroine chaos, though. I would not recommend starting with this one, even though it does sort of encompass a lot of the ideas that people tend to associate with Austen. I think that this one should wait until later so that you can really get her humor, because Austen has a very specific sense of humor that you should be acquainted with in order to go into this one and survive the crying. And the last novella actually is called Lady Susan, and just don't. At 23,000 words, even Austen was like, eh. I don't know, in that one, it's garbage. Not to put too fine a point on it. Don't bother. Don't waste your time with Lady Susan. Just be happy with these. Jane Eyre. Thick? Yes. Thought-provoking? Yes. Morally questionable? Perhaps. Beautifully written? Absolutely. This book gets under your skin in a sort of unsettling way that you also kind of don't hate. Very haunting, very elegant, super brooding. Honestly, reading it kind of feels like there's something locked up in the attic and you don't really know what it is, but there are weird giggles at nighttime, and also maybe someone tried to burn the house down. I discovered just now when I was searching through my bookshelves that I don't own a copy of Dracula, which is concerning and also should be fixed ASAP, because Dracula is creepy and tragic, and I don't know why it wasn't in my life sooner. This is actually a recent addition to my list of must-read classics. I read it at the beginning of this year. I listened to it mostly in my car, and I will say that there was more than one occasion where I got home late and had been listening to Dracula, and I very gracefully, very poisedly, and very calmly hastened to the door and unlocked the house and got inside. It's a very good read. It's also very, very creepy. Stunningly written. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. It's frustrating in one of the best ways, where you're really invested in the characters and in the plot, and you just need to see some resolution, and it's just that kind of frustrating. It's good. It's good. You had to know I wouldn't get through this section without mentioning good old Edgar. The Fall of the House of Usher. Need I say more? This is a super short, very unsettling, beautifully written evening read. Poe really said, I'm gonna make your skin crawl in under 30 pages, and he did it very successfully. The short story kind of feels like you are experiencing a train wreck that happened 100 years ago. It's like you know bad stuff is happening because you know what a train wreck is, and it happened a long time ago, so it shouldn't really affect you the way it does, but it also does, and you haven't actually seen the train wreck happen yet. You have to live through it.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Definitely worth an evening of your time. The Woman in White. If I did one of those silent book review things, maybe I should do one of those. But if I did do one of them, it'd be like, That was stupid. But my point is, this is another recent addition to my list of must-read classics. My sister recommended it to me, and it's been on my bookshelf for a long time, and it blew me away. By the end of the book, I was literally addicted to the writing style. I kept wanting to go back just for the writing because it was so permeated into my brain.
That's a wrong phrase.
It permeated my brain. Additionally, the women in this book, super intriguing because this was published in 1860 and it doesn't really have women characters the way that a lot of these older books tend to have women characters. The women in this book are literally so physically and mentally strong, and they're crucial to the development of the plot. One of the women, she's climbing on the outsides of buildings and she's doing spy work and she's sneaking around. Very different than what you used to read. I'm not against a soft female, not even a little bit, but this is very different, super surprising. There are some aspects where you read a sentence and you say, oh yes, a man wrote this. A man wrote this, and that's okay. They're just also really, really funny. Super surprising read. I am so glad this book is in my life now. I don't know where it was before. If you have been around for any length of time, you know that I'm wildly obsessed with Dune. When I talk about world building, this is the standard. This is the standard for building unique cultures that all have incredible rules. They're consistent, they're diverse, they're amazing. This world is incredible. And if you want to read sci-fi, you have to read this. It is a classic sci-fi book that is just so impressive. This is what I like to call high sci-fi, literally the equivalent of high fantasy. If you're not into epic scale detail, this might not be for you, but if you are,
And if you like cinnamon,
you should definitely give it a read. Journey to the Center of the Earth is a book that everyone loves to hate. Everyone loves to hate Verne, and on some level I get it, but this book is actually not bad. In fact, dare I say that it is amazing. It's not an action novel. It's psychologically intriguing and surprisingly funny in some places. The short version of it is that it is professors on an excursion. So think of it that way rather than thinking of it like Ender's Game. They're very different books. The last one for the sci-fi section is by Miss Mary Shelley herself, who is in fact the mother of sci-fi. I don't own a copy of Frankenstein because I happened to hate that book, but it does fall inside the sci-fi genre, and I will not take argument on this point. This is the beginning of sci-fi. Yes, it's also gothic horror, but think about it. Think about it just for a second. The experimentation, the action, the literal use of science to create fiction. It's sci-fi, guys. If you like lightning and existentialism, you will love this book. If you don't like page after page after page of feelings and emotions and thinking and also feeling and this might not be the book for you. However, I suffered through it, and I think that you should suffer through it because you need to read what is the birth of the science fiction genre, if for no other reason than to have been there. In short, read it. That's an order. Chronicles of Narnia is literally the series that turned me into a bookworm. Before I read this series, I hated reading. I think it had a lot to do with my eyesight, actually. Reading made my head hurt, it made me tired, and it just wasn't worth it to me. Reading Narnia made me realize that there were many stories out there that actually were worth it. So thank you, C.S. Lewis, for helping me become who I am today. And also, no, I don't think it's just for kids. I think that's ridiculous. This is a beautiful series that everyone should read, and I will not take any hate towards these books at all, so you're aware. Clearly I am attached. The Hobbit is so precious, pun intended. The relationships are so beautifully written. They are so deep and rich, and I just can't get enough of them. I know that The Hobbit gets a lot more hate than the Lord of the Rings series, but I actually preferred The Hobbit to any of the Lord of the Rings books. I just feel like it's a really nice story, and it moves a little quicker. Not that I dislike the Lord of the Rings books, I'm just saying. This one out of the 4 is my favorite. I know that's upside down. Also, isn't this a beautiful little copy? I love it. Little Women. This is a book I abhorred when I was younger. I thought it was too stupid, and it was too much emotional and too long, too dramatic, and I didn't like Beth, and I didn't like Meg, and I didn't like Joe. The only one I liked was Amy, which, if you've read this book, then that perhaps tells you something about me. Because my sisters all really loved this book, I decided to give it a try as a grown-up, because maybe it would just hit different, and when I tell you that it hit different, oh my gosh. I listened to it this year, and I bawled. It is so beautiful. The progression from childhood into womanhood into married adult life, they experience loss, getting closer to each other, the sister bonds and the dynamics, and it moved me, Bob. I do think that that happens sometimes, though. I think that we read books that are a little too old for us when we're younger. And that does not mean that I think that kiddos shouldn't read the classics. I read Little Women when I was maybe 9, maybe something like that, which was pre-Narnia, so maybe that impacts it too. I just also think that some books should be reserved for when you're older and maybe you can understand the dynamics a little bit better. A lot of what makes Little Women so rich was really lost on me in my youth. But now that I'm more grown up and have seen some things, not lost on me. I'm gonna go cry again. Alice in Wonderland. This is a weird book. This is a really weird book. This is the kind of weird that makes you feel like a literary cryptid when you read it. It's just so quotable and so unique, and the vibes are confusing and the logic is kind of broken, but somehow it all works. Plus, there's a really killer poem in there. If you know, you know.
I'm so ugly.
Last but not least, how about a classic that I just cannot stand? Like, it makes me angry to think about how people like this book somehow. I just don't get it. I do not understand. I suffered through the whole thing, and I will never, ever tell anyone that they should read this book. I hated it so much that I gave away my copy of it to someone else to suffer through, which in hindsight was kind of cruel. Wuthering Heights. People, if this is your favorite classic, I genuinely have to wonder if you are okay. Blink twice, I will come help you. What are you thinking? This is one of the darkest, most morally bankrupt books ever. Everyone is so evil, and there's no one to root for. It is page after page of emotionally regurgitating individuals yelling into the wind and occasionally digging up corpses. I finished this book purely out of spite, and I regret it. So that's it. Those are my hot takes on the classics. The good, the bad, and the absolutely nope. What do you think? Is there a classic that saved your sanity or got you into reading? Or is there one that conversely made you want to burn all of your books? Drop your feels in the comments. I'm here for the chaos. Happy reading, and I'll see you in the next one.